What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Turnbuckle Topics podcast. I'm your host, Pat Deneen, and this is my AEW Revolution preview and predictions episode. Along with me today, I have the associate. How we doing, Kev?
Hey, what's up? Doing good, doing good.
You ready to talk a little AEW? It's been about a month and a half since we've last spoke. We were talking about
Right.
the Royal Rumble last time, and well, a whole lot has happened, but we're not here to talk WWE, but it's been pretty. You've been tuning into WWE and AEW frequently?
Yeah. Like you said, a lot has happened since. A lot of my predictions have been wrong, but hey, I'm used to
Hey,
that.
such is life, man. What are you going to do about it? Let's open up the show here with the icon, Sting. This Sunday is his final match, his retirement match at 64 years old. God bless him. And one thing I'm sure you would agree, and many that are listening now, did not fully intend on seeing Sting descend from the rafters on AEW Dynamite this past Wednesday when the Young Bucks came out and attacked Darby Allin 2-on-1. His music
Mhm.
hit. They went to the top of the stage with baseball bats ready for him. And I figured Sting's not going to come down the, ramp, but he'll probably sneak attack coming out of the audience or something like that. And he came from the rafters, dude. It felt like January 20th, 1997. Picture this. I was 10 years old. So what were you? 3, 4 at that
Yeah,
time?
on the verge of
And
being four.
January 20th, dude, 1997, the United Center, 140 feet. For the very first time, Sting came down from them rafters to confront the Macho Man Randy Savage. And seeing him come down, I'm not going to lie, got a little choked up because knowing his final match was coming this Sunday was one thing, but seeing Sting make that drop all the way down at 64 years old, mind you, when he first did it, he was 37, my current age. So picture that.
Right.
So, and by the way, just 6 months after he dropped to the ground from the rafters for the very first time, I believe it was a family friend who had gotten this for me, maybe even my parents, a two Pat Happy Birthday Sting autograph from WCW. Check that out.
Wow, look at that.
So
Yeah.
I didn't intend on bringing it. I just happened to remember before the show that I had this. I was going to bring up when we met him in 2016, but
hmm
that was the only time I did meet him. But then having this, thinking about the rafters, initially NWO, WCW. Here we are, a few days from his retirement. What do you make of all this?
Yeah, it's really something special because I wish that I was able to catch him in his prime. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to. I never really watched WCW just because I was more of a fan of WWF. And then, when he made the move over to TNA, I never really was a TNA kid. I still stuck with WWE. And so I kind of hate myself that I was never able to really watch him throughout, like him transitioning, from his heydays and then right to his prime and everything. And I'm really, grateful to watch him now. He means a lot to the business. Um, yeah, we caught wind of him in WWE, but that was just like a really small glimpse. And I'm really happy how they've been treating him as like a legend. We get to see. So like, I hope this, that like the wrestlers in the industry get to like, really pay attention to like the treatment of like the legends of how how AEW in general teaches like they treat these wrestlers. So yeah, I think it's going to be a really good match upcoming this Sundays.
Yeah, with
I'm
the Young Bucks,
excited.
it's going to be good. This
Yeah.
new rendition of the Young Bucks, which we'll talk about during the predictions for AEW Revolution. But I'll tell you one thing, Kev. I will, and you already know this. I was Sting
Mhm.
twice for Halloween. Crow Sting, Wolfpack Sting. I may even throw on the Wolfpack Sting mask on Sunday. Not sure if I'm going
Right.
to bring out the paint, but at minimum, I might throw this bad boy on if it still fits. And I'll be locked in and I'll be ready to go, bro. You might. What are you going to be? You going to be Surfer Sting? Going to throw it back to the what probably around the time you were born? Not even, right? You weren't
Yeah.
even. Yeah, you didn't see any Surfer Sting, right? Late 80s,
No,
early
no,
90s.
I never got to see that.
There's about 10 variations of Sting throughout his career from the late
Right.
80s till present day. I'm going to do my personal three favorites, and I want to know which one's your favorite. Surfer Sting, I guess, isn't in the running because you weren't really around for it, quite literally. So there's Surfer Sting. I'm not going to mention the transitioning Sting in between that and Crow Sting. So
Mhm.
Surfer Sting, Crow Sting, or NWO Wolfpack Sting. Which would you say was your favorite?
Um, I would just say regular classic, Crow Sting. I remember, reading different, like the wrestling magazines, as a child. And even though I never got to watch Sting, like I said, his picture always stuck out to me. Like it's one that I can always remember, like just seeing the pictures of him um, doing whatever wrestling maneuver. And I was always like, man, I want to watch this guy, like,
Yeah.
and anytime you and me have gone to like wrestling conventions, it always sticks out when like a local fan dresses up as Sting. So yeah,
Yeah,
that
we've
one.
seen it many times at the Rollway Rec Center, rather. Remember the guy would always
Mhm.
dress up as Sting over the years,
Yeah.
and that was kind of his thing.
But yeah, there have been others too. So and it always, it always brings a smile to your face when you see like a fan dressed up just like him.
Oh yeah. Well, personally for me, it's difficult. I love the NWO Wolfpack Sting. I thought that was his coolest aesthetic look. Big fan of
Yeah.
the Wolfpack as well.
Mhm.
I'll just put it out here right now. My favorites in WCW by far were Sting in no particular order. Sting, Diamond Dallas Page, the Harlem Heat, as far as the tag team's concerned, and then
Mhm.
the NWO Wolfpack collectively. So I guess Sting's in there twice. So I guess you could say my favorite in WCW was Sting. He's the heart and soul of WCW. But if I had to pick one, Surfer Sting, Crow Sting, or Wolfpack Sting, to me, it's neck and neck with Surfer Sting and Crow Sting, because Crow Sting was a cool rebirth that he desperately needed. He needed something to get over in the mid to late '90s. The Surfer Sting was cool, for it ran its course, but I don't know, man. It's hard to choose. I'm neck and neck, Surfer Sting and Crow Sting. Final answer. Um, so yeah, that's it as far as I just want to bring up Sting in the beginning of before we get into this review any further. Let's start with Revolution. This Sunday, it's the fifth annual Revolution, and it is taking place at the Greensboro Coliseum, Greensboro, North Carolina. And this is the first AEW pay per view to be held in North Carolina, by the way. The event will host the final match in Sting's nearly 40-year career. It will be held at the same venue in which he faced Ric Flair at Clash of Champions, March 1988, which was considered to be the match that established Sting as a main event star in wrestling. So I was 1 years old, right? I was one. Kevin wasn't even a thought at this moment in time, and so here we are. And Ric Flair is going to be ringside, and we'll get to that match in a little bit as far as the role he may play. It may be very pivotal as far as who is going to come out the victor.
Right.
What match would you say out of this 9-match card? I know by the time this is released or by the time Sunday evening comes around, this match card will probably be 12 matches or so. Tony Khan probably adds some pre-show matches or 0 hour, maybe one more to
Right.
the main cards. We'll probably have 12. But out of the 9 announced, 6 are title matches. What match would
Mm.
you say you're looking forward to the most?
I'm looking right off here to the side and at the rundown. And for me, I want to say the match that really sticks out to me. We got a little preview of it. Seeing these competitors go face to face in the ring is Will Ospreay and Kanosuke.
That's going to be a
Uh,
hard hitting battle. Yeah,
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 for
no
sure.
doubt about it.
And kind of just to like reiterate something that we've mentioned in past episodes in the past 2 years is that for whatever reason, this pay per view for AEW, Revolution is usually the one that goes under the radar,
Mm-hmm.
and it's always the one that delivers the hardest, like the best, I should say.
Yeah, I'm a big
Is
fan
that
of Revolution. I'm sorry. Yeah,
yeah?
Revolution.
We know that like the other pay per views usually get a lot more promotion, and they kind of like try to make a bigger deal out of them, and this one gets like you know not as much attention, but it usually performs the best in my opinion.
Yeah, it's been a solid, through and
Mm.
through, except as we all poke fun at 2021, the exploding barbed wire death match between
Mhm.
John Moxley and Kenny Omega. That was something else. But all right, so that's the match you're looking forward to the most. Will Ospreay, Konosuke Takeshita. Now, Will Ospreay is full time. Will Ospreay rather is full time, as he mentioned this past Wednesday on Dynamite. He's done with all of his New Japan obligations as of the day before your birthday, February 11th, and so that's that. Now, as far as the match I'm most looking forward to be honest with you, um, obviously from a nostalgia standpoint, Sting obviously holds a very special place in my heart for this card. But as far as the match I'm looking forward to the most, Osprey Takeshita, it's right up there. I'm gonna have to go with the triple threat, the 3-way match for the AEW World Championship: Samoa Joe, Hangman Adam Page, Swerve Strickland, for obviously the AEW World Title. Hangman, he pulled the wool over us, huh? He opened up Dynamite talking about how he's going to be unable to compete due to last week's 6-man match. He got injured
Mhm.
going off the back of Samoa Joe, and that was not the case. He fooled us all, and so he hit Swerve Strickland in the back with one of his, well, the crutch he came out with, as Swerve was about to get the whose house is it? Swerve's house for the third time. And so the
Okay.
match was made official. It was confirmed. Tony Khan doubled down on it on Twitter, and so that's
Mhm.
official. So that should be a good one. I was getting really disappointed there, as I'm sure many were at the start of that show, saying, "Man, this Swerve and Samoa Joe is going to be great, but man, it would have been great to see them finally finish out that feud." Swerve and Hangman. How many times has this happened to Swerve Strickland? Just the last pay per view, World's End, last minute, right day of. Keith Lee
Mm.
wasn't
Right.
medically cleared. They filled in Dustin Rhodes in his place. And that was another feud that we finally saw was going to get finished. It was kind of like the Ricky Starks effect, right? It's happened to Ricky Starks numerous times where last second something changes for him, whether it's
Yeah.
CM Punk leaving the company, getting suspended. Luckily, Brian Danielson filled in for him at All Out. And again, at what was it, Full Gear, when Kenny Omega was unable to compete? Or no, it was at World's End, right? It was at World's End where they were supposed to get that tag team opportunity, the Golden Jets, and Omega was out. And so Ricky
Right.
Starks, they weren't able to have that tag match. It was like an 8-man match or something like that. So anyway, long story short, I'm glad to see the match is going to take place for the AEW World Championship. And so that's that. That's the one I'm going with as far as my favorite.
Yeah. Good pick. We have, talked about in the past before how we wanted to see a lot more out of Hangman, and I think this past episode really helped, build his character a little bit more. We got to see, you know, well, I don't want to get off topic, but like it's good to see that like he's building his heel character.
Yes, absolutely. It's that damn mustache. And it's not a bad thing either. You can legitimately have the
Yeah.
argument or the case that all three men in this match are heels, one way or
Yeah.
another. It absolutely looks that way. And it's good and
Yeah.
it's cool. And to be quite honest with you, a large majority of the fan base is going to be cheering for all three. You're going to have a
Yeah.
lot of Samoa Joe fans, a lot of Swerve fans, obviously, Swerve's house. And you're going to have a lot of believers in Hangman now.
Right. And to be honest, I'm a huge fan of this setup just because we're very accustomed to the traditional babyface heel versus, but and that's something that I've always wanted to see is kind of like a match where there's multiple heels or just multiple faces, just so we can get like you said, multiple perspectives from the fan base.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get that on Sunday. There's no doubt about that, brother. And obviously, well, we'll give each other our picks once we get to that. But I want to start off with, in all due respect to the Icon Sting, I want to start off with that match first. This is a tornado tag team match for the AEW World Tag Team Championships that Sting and Darby have held for the better part of 3 weeks, maybe 4 at most. Again, this
Mm.
is Sting's retirement match. Will he go out on top? Him and Darby have been undefeated for the last 3 years, ever since their first match together at AEW Revolution in 2021. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, it was that cinematic match against Team Taz's Ricky Starks and Powerhouse Hobbs, correct? Was that the duo that they had went against? That was a very fun
Yeah.
match. They did a great job with that, the cinematic vibe and all that. So Sting and Darby Allin, champs, going up against the Young Bucks, Matthew Jackson and Nicholas Jackson. And allegedly, as it seems, we're not sure how it's going to end, but Ric Flair, the Nature Boy, will be in the corner of Sting, just like he was going up against him in '88 at the Coliseum. They're back in Greensboro Coliseum. Before I give you my answer, who's going to get the win here, and what role will Ric Flair play, if any?
Oh, see, I'm a very conflicted with my answer for a few reasons. I will say this: I'm not really, putting Ric Flair into the equation per se, but I do think that Sting and Darby will end up retaining, said titles. Um, you know, I'm trying to picture like how everything's gonna happen. I want to say they're gonna end up retaining, and I don't know if there's gonna be a celebration per se, for because Sting won his last match, but I could easily see, you know, any type of celebration being immediately, um, kind of just ending to a halt, a screeching halt, say, with maybe the Young Bucks attacking them. I feel like the Young Bucks are gonna, be very pissed off that they lost. Staying true to their characters. And,
So I would agree. Well,
I had
finish.
mentioned
Yeah, I was going
I
to
had
say I would
mentioned
agree
something.
with you, but
Yeah,
they did that right after Sting and Darby won a few weeks ago, so they already pulled
right.
that card. So I'm not so sure about that. But I mean,
I
it's
don't
your
know.
opinion. That's why I'm a little reluctant to think like that. But you
I see,
finish.
because I had thrown out another theory of mine, but I do think that is going to happen. But I don't think it's going to happen maybe this pay-per-view. I think it's going to happen within the year per se. Um, I might as well spoil it. I was saying that I do end up thinking Darby's going to go heel. I thought that maybe
Good take.
I
Good
thought
take.
maybe it's a possibility that you know once you know all is said and done, he turns on Sting. But I'm a little bit hesitant on that, to be honest, right now. I'm very confident that Darby by the end of the year will end up becoming a heel, just because I'm seeing a very interesting trend
Mm-hmm.
develop within WWE. Sorry, AEW, I should say. Um, I've noticed that, like, how we said that this is the fifth revolution, that a lot of the faces that we had come to know in the company are now heels.
Yeah.
And last year we saw one of the bigger ones. We finally got to see Jungle Boy, become Jack Perry. And the last domino I feel like that needs to fall is a Darby Allin. I feel like we need to see him go heel, and then him kind of go for that title run, the main pick, the main belt.
All right.
But like I said, I think that might be a little bit later down the line. I'm gonna say that they end up retaining, but then I guess on Dynamite they will forfeit the titles, and there might be some type of tournament.
Well, they allege that this past Wednesday was Sting's final Dynamite. So even if they are to relinquish or go out on top per se, I feel like it would just be Darby there. I mean, yeah, Sting could show up, of course, um,
Mm-hmm.
but we'll see. As far as I'm concerned, I could see the Darby Allin angle happening where he does turn on Sting. I think there's a likely probability to that, but I am leaning a little more into the dirtiest player in the game, the Nature Boy Ric Flair, turning on his lifelong friend Sting. And you
Right.
know what? It's not the worst thing in the world. Obviously, in the perfect world, I would love to see Sting and Darby go out on top, undefeated.
Mm.
Retiring at 64 years old, turning 65 in a week or two. Sting, AEW World Tag Team Champions, but I don't see that happening. I see this new and improved Young Bucks winning. They're heels now, and they're going to get even more heel heat for when they go and win these tag titles, especially due to the fact of Ric Flair interference. You're going to see Ric Flair come out and be with them. That's going to be Ric Flair's new role on AEW. I don't know if he's necessarily going to be a manager or what, but he's going to be a part of it. He went into that locker room last week. Obviously, this week he kind of played into it. They're playing it up where he came out to help Sting and Darby, and he was
Mm.
attacked by them and so on. And so it made a lot of people say, "Oh, wait, he is really down for the cause, still with Sting and still with Darby." But believe you
Right.
me, Ric Flair is going to turn on
Yeah.
Sting in the Greensboro Coliseum. So again, and new World Tag Team Champions, Young Bucks. That'll be their third title reign, right? As far as these titles are concerned,
Yeah. I believe
with these, I believe.
that.
So, and then Ric Flair again, he'll be with them. It's a good transition, and I think
Mm.
that's the end result. So we'll see what happens. Nonetheless, looking forward to it. Again, I hope I'm wrong. Hope Sting goes out on top, but I just don't see it happening. Can't trust Ric Flair. We've seen it too many times before. And
Yeah.
Rick turning heel in 2024, unbelievable. But here we are.
Yeah. I could also see like an instance where maybe they might tease something along those lines of like, hey, it looks like he's going to screw over Sting and Darby, but in the end he doesn't. I don't know.
Mm. Oh,
Yeah.
well, you know
Yeah.
what it is? For me, it's the finality of Sting being done here. And
Yeah.
so it's like, do it or don't. And I feel like it's just within his nature. No pun intended. The nature boy is going to do it. That's who he is when push comes to shove. And we all respect it. We may not always understand why Flair, why Rick, why would you do this? But he's going to do it. And then, him and Sting might have a toast afterwards and laugh about it and joke because at the end of the day, it's all good. It's all love. This is obviously all a grandiose stage of pro wrestling that we all love, and it's theater and it's good stuff. So
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, when you look at it from a whole perspective, not just booking, I get it. We get it. Maybe us in our teens or early 20s or even as young children may not be too happy about the outcome if that's what happens, but we get it now. And so we'll
Yeah.
see. So let's go to the next matchup here. I'm also very intrigued with this one. AEW International Championship. We have two-time champ Orange Cassidy putting his title on the line against the Undisputed Kingdom's Roderick Strong. And allegedly it says that the Kingdom, Matt Taven, Mike Bennett will be in his corner for this match, which, the numbers advantage may be there. Who knows if the best friends will be there for Orange Cassidy, Rocky Romero, and so on. Who do you see winning this?
I hope this doesn't sound like a surprise, but I'm gonna end up going with Roderick Strong. I think this is where we start to see, this faction start to collect the belts even more, and we saw them already get the, some tag titles.
Yeah.
So I think this is gonna be, an addition to more gold. Eventually, I don't know who's going to win the next title per se, but yeah, this is where we start to take them more seriously.
Yeah, I'm going to cut to the chase. I'm with you there. I'm going with Roderick Strong and give Orange Cassidy some time off. TK, give
Yeah,
that man a full paid vacation.
for
Nobody
real.
has been working longer and harder for AEW than these three individuals as follows: John Moxley, Orange Cassidy, and Darby Allin. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously Brian Danielson and so many others do as well. Don't get me wrong, but those three, namely, week in, week out, getting the crap beaten out of them. And man, oh man. So
mm-hmm.
OC, you've had a great run with AEW, especially the last couple of years. Go take a vacay, come back after Double or Nothing or something.
Yeah, right.
Heat up for the summertime, come back in the summer, be on All In, All Out, and that be that. You know what I mean? And let us miss him a little bit.
1000% agree.
All right, match number 3 here. We're gonna talk about the match I'm most looking forward to, the AEW World Championship match. Champion Samoa Joe going up against Hangman Adam Page and Swerve Strickland, Prince Nana in his corner. As I referenced earlier on the show, Tony Khan doubled down and said, as you saw tonight on Wednesday Night Dynamite, Hangman Page is not injured, and the AEW World Title 3-way match, Hangman Swerve Joe, is on for this Sunday at Revolution. So that was confirmed. It's going to happen. Kev, who do you have coming out as champion?
I'm already picturing it. I'm hearing in my mind and new AEW
Really?
World Champion
And new. I'm already intrigued. You didn't even say the name yet.
Swerve Strickland.
Really?
Yeah, I think
Wow.
it's the time. We've
You're
been saying
only
it for a while.
you're only giving Joe a 2-month title reign.
Yeah, he
Wow.
unfortunately, as much as we love Joe for everything that he does for the business, I think this is one of those instances where he's going to be, unfortunately, like a transitional
I was
champion.
gonna say that's still definitely transitional champion territory. 2 months, barely 2 months and a few days to be exact. Wow. Okay. I gotta say, and still, AEW World Champion Samoa Joe. I have a very hard time. They're gonna take it off of him right now.
Mm.
I know with Swerve, you might say, if not now, then when. I get that completely. There's so many others. Will Ospreay just joined. You have Jay White. When Adam Cole comes back, will Wardlow win it for him in the meantime? There's so many other, challengers for the title, of course.
Mhm.
And not to mention, others that haven't won gold yet. Danielson, maybe he might win gold this Sunday as well against Kingston. We'll get to that in a minute. And so many others who have won gold that want it back. Hangman, Moxley, and so on. So it's tough, but I got to go with Samoa Joe, dude. I have a very hard time seeing him as a transitional champion, but hey, crazier things have happened, right?
Right, right.
Let's talk about match number 4 here. This is for the AEW Women's World Championship. Timeless Tony
Mm.
Storm defending her title against Deonna Purrazzo. Of course, I'm sure she'll have Mariah May and Luther in her corner. Now, look, 2 months ago to the day when Revolution will take place, we were at that episode of AEW Dynamite, the first Dynamite
Mm.
of 2024.
Yeah.
January 3rd, and that was also the debut of Deonna Purrazzo. A lot of people thought maybe Mercedes Moné, which we'll probably get in a couple of weeks. We'll talk about that later, and a
Mm.
few other names that we were thinking about who might show up. So Deonna basically called her out from the jump, confronted Mariah May and so on. And so here we are for the Women's World Championship. By the way, as it stands at this very moment in time, the only women's match on the card. There's no non-title matches. Unfortunately, Julia Hart, she's not defending her TBS championship on this card. It seems she's been champion for 3 months since defeating Chris Statlander at Full Gear. So I don't know what that's all about, but who do you have coming out as AEW Women's World Champion come Sunday?
And still
Okay.
AEW Women's World Champion.
It's the right decision. Again,
Yeah.
I second that. I second, much like the International Championship, I second that for sure. So, all right, we're 2-2, right? As far as we agree on 2, disagree on 2. Yeah, for sure. You know, I'd love to see Deonna Purrazzo as champion, but especially expecting somebody such as Mercedes Moné potentially showing up March 13th in her hometown of Boston, Massachusetts, TD Garden. Was it AEW Big Business? They're calling it. You know, I'm going to assume, going to go out on a limb here, if Deonna Purrazzo was able to waltz in and essentially, you know, call her title shot, you know, getting some wins along the way, you better believe Mercedes is coming right for that title. You know, I'm assuming so. And I feel like we see it as early as Double or Nothing in May. So we'll see what happens. And I think Toni Storm is the champion to take it, the woman and the champ to take it off of. You know, give me a Mercedes Toni match. We didn't unfortunately get that in WWE, maybe on some house shows, but you know, Toni was just called up and then Mercedes was making her way out. Toni made her way out around the same time, give or take, right? So yeah, I'm with you there, brother. Timeless Toni Storm for the win.
Mm-hmm.
Match number 5. This is for the Continental Crown Championship. The champion Eddie Kingston going up against Bryan Danielson. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Kev. During the Continental Classic just a couple of months ago, which was a fantastic tournament, one of the best things that's been on AEW television in the last 12 months.
Yeah.
Kingston defeated Bryan in the semis, I believe, and then he went on to defeat Moxley in the finals. That's correct?
I believe so, yeah.
Because I know he beat all 3 members of the Black Bull Combat Club, and I think he beat Claudio before Bryan.
Yeah, that was one of those matches where I think it caught a lot of people off guard when he
beat him. Yeah, no, I'll tell you right now. I told my wife, I said, look, I said, there's no way. I love Kingston. I said, there's no way he's getting past Bryan. And sure enough, not only did he get past him, he beat Moxley at, what was it, World's End, and defeated all 3 members of Black Bull Combat Club in the same tournament. That's damn impressive. That's very impressive.
Ooh.
So as far as this match goes, Kev, and I want to hear your, answer in a moment. On Dynamite this past week, there was a 6-man tag match with FTR and Eddie Kingston. If you didn't catch it, going up against those 3 members of the Black Bull Combat Club, Claudio Castagnoli, Bryan Danielson, Jon Moxley, and it ended with Bryan putting Kingston to sleep. So Bryan got a big victory there. I don't know if that means anything necessarily going into Sunday, but who do you have coming out as the Continental Crown Champion?
This one I find to be a little bit tricky just because
I agree.
I'm kind of weighing, if the challenger were to win, give or take, like what kind of obligations would he have if he were to win, and then defending overseas. It's a little bit tricky. I kind of feel compelled to just go with Kingston.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Kingston's a safer answer, to be honest.
I'll be honest with you, I feel the same as you do as far as the level of difficulty deciding this one. I think out of the 9 matches here listed, this was the most difficult one for me. And I think the one thing that helped me was this win for Danielson in the Black Bull Combat Club on Dynamite. That kind of led me to believe, like, all right, they're showing us what Bryan Danielson is more than capable of doing to Eddie Kingston going into this matchup on Sunday night. However, even if he just squeaks it out barely by the skin of his teeth, I think we're going to see, and still, Continental Crown Champion Eddie Kingston. I'm with you there, brother. I do think he walks out with that title. And let's take it back to a few weeks further, all right? I just want to talk briefly about Battle in the Valley, New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong. We got to see the return of Jack Perry there. Now, Jack Perry's in all these tournaments in New Japan, whether it's California or going over to the Tokyo Dome and so on. And who knows when we'll see him again in AEW. I know he ripped up the AEW contract or whatever it was when he returned last month in New Japan. I think that is the gateway to him returning to AEW television. Eventually, somehow, some way, challenging the likes of an Eddie Kingston, not only challenging him, but winning it, regardless where that is. And that is why he's going to be able to come to AEW freely and justifiably, because guess what? He's the champion, the Continental Crown champion, and that's all of them, right? Isn't that the Ring of Honor? Isn't that the New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong title and that
Yeah,
Continental Crown, right? So he has the key to three doors.
right. Great way to connect all those dots. Like, yeah, I like what you're saying. Yeah,
It makes
it,
sense, right? That's how you get him back on TV without saying, "Oh my God, Tony Khan caved." No, he won. He beat Eddie Kingston convincingly, even if he cheated, which is very likely in this
right.
scenario. I don't necessarily see him beating Kingston clean. Give him some more heel heat. And man, I think that is the way to go. So that's another reason why I say keep the title on Kingston, because I feel like it wouldn't hit the same if it was on a guy like Danielson or someone else. I feel like everybody kind of feels for Kingston. He's the everyday guy. You know what I mean? Not here to
Mhm.
impress anybody. So that's just my 2 cents on that. But let's get to match number 6, aka the Associates match he's most looking forward to on this pay-per-view. Will Ospreay in his first official AEW match. Well, a first official member of AEW, not coming over in a Forbidden Door sense or all in with New Japan, going up against Konosuke Takeshita in a singles match. Now, both technically members of the Don Callis family, even though we know Will Ospreay is going babyface, it seems, and they're going to turn
Mhm.
on him, Powerhouse Hobbs and company. So let's see what happens here. Now, real quick, the three matches. I know he's had quite a few matches on Dynamite and Rampage in the past. Will Ospreay, right? But the three matches that he did have, and they were all victories, as he mentioned on Dynamite, were at AEW Forbidden Door in 2022, 2023, and All In. So that was he defeated Orange Cassidy, Kenny Omega, and Chris Jericho in that order. Pretty sure that's accurate. And so here he is, his official AEW debut, signed, sealed, delivered. Do you know how much he's making, by the way? I'm sure it's a pretty penny.
Um, the exact number of the contract, I don't know, but if I had to guess, he's definitely top 5 paid in AEW.
Yeah, I believe it. And TK is allowing him the opportunity to still live in the UK. He didn't have to fully come over. Obviously, if he were to sign with WWE, he would have had to move to the US and such. So making a pretty penny and still having the luxuries of being able to live, back home. So that's cool. So anyway, who do you got in this one, Kev? It's going to be a hard hitting battle.
Right. And for me, I'm gonna say I'm, this one's a little bit tough as well, but mm, I'm gonna go with Will Ospreay. I'm leaning towards you. Kind of just alluded to it. Maybe since he's babyface in the match, I could see him. Once he wins, they kind of like kick him out of the group. Uh,
Attack
you
him
know,
at the end, beat him down.
he goes his own way. Maybe he continues this feud down the line with wrestling. You know, Hobbs on like an episode of Dynamite or something. So yeah, I could see that
Well, how
him.
about his fellow or former United Empire member, Kyle Fletcher?
Right.
That's a feud right there for him to start with. And that will definitely help Fletcher, even in a losing effort in a singles capacity, because I don't know when Mark Davis is due back, his tag team partner for Aussie Open, but he's what is he? Ring of Honor TV champion, I believe, the last couple of months, Kyle
Yeah.
Fletcher. And so that will be very interesting too, especially if he's one of the people to attack Will Ospreay after the match, say it's after a victory or whatever. So that could be very interesting storytelling. And yeah, you could easily book him through the duration of this year just against the Don Callis family. Like you said, Hobbs, Kyle
Right.
Fletcher, and so on. So that should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, at least all the way to the summer.
Yeah, right. And then he could, go up against them at All In or whatever in Wembley. Yeah, I'm going to go with Will Ospreay too. If he won all those pay-per-view matches as a member of New Japan Pro Wrestling, he's got to win his debut match as a member of the AEW roster, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's Will Ospreay. That's who I got.
All right.
Match number 7 here. We have a singles match for the AEW TNT Championship. Christian Cage will likely have Kill Switch, Mother Wayne, as she goes by now, right? Mama Wayne. And the prodigy, Nick Wayne, by his side, going up against Daniel Garcia. Now, who do you have in this one? Who's coming out TNT champion?
I'm kind of thinking because I know that like Daniel Garcia has a lot stacked against him, and it feels like the obvious answer should be Christian Cage, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm leaning towards Daniel Garcia. Like I feel like I'm picking in general a lot of title changes because I I feel like we mentioned this before that we're starting to see a lot of changes already this year for AEW, and
Right.
I feel like this would help progress some more storyline seeing Garcia as champion.
All right. So you're definitely going with Daniel Garcia on this one.
Yeah.
All right. Very interesting. Well, I'm sticking with Christian Cage, and still, was he two-time
Yeah.
TNT champion officially? Yeah, got to go with Christian Cage. I feel like there's that obvious unfinished business with Adam Copeland. I feel like when all is said and done, Adam Copeland's got to hold that title for more than, what was it, 5-10 seconds at World's End when he
Right.
lost right away. Hey, he's still in the record books, but he didn't get to leave the ring. Never mind the arena, the ring with it. So we'll see what happens there when that rematch will take place, maybe later in the springtime. But yeah, I got to go with Christian Cage retaining and still. So match number 8 of 9. Here we are already. And I don't even think, well, we technically can, we're going to get into match number 9. Save the best for last, all the last minute changes with that. But let's go to this tag team match.
Mm.
FTR, Dax Harwood, and Cash Wheeler versus the Blackpool Combat Club's John Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli. This easily could be a bloodbath. We've seen the last couple of weeks. These two teams go at it, whether it's backstage, in the locker rooms, in the center of the ring, in the crowd, you name it. Who do you have winning this tag team match?
Either team, can easily eat the loss, and I don't think either, team would really suffer.
Mm-hmm.
But who does it benefit more? I feel like it benefits FTR more, to be honest.
Okay. So you have
So
them winning?
yeah, I'm gonna go
Okay.
with it.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm with FTR winning. Even though, Moxley and Claudio make a great tag team, FTR, they've
Mm-hmm.
been tagging forever, right? So you got to go with the traditional tag team, the revival, FTR, call them what you want. They've been together forever. And so they'll find a way to get it done. Again, even if it's barely, um, they'll find a way. So
Mm-hmm.
let's go to this match of all sorts of ridiculousness, Kev. I don't even know where to begin. It was supposed to be called the Meat Madness match that was announced last week, now changed to the All-Star Scramble match. We're going to get into it, folks. If you're not familiar with this, neither are we, and I'm going to try to break this down to the best of our ability because this is why I saved this for last. Now, Tony Khan tweeted out on Wednesday, a couple hours before Dynamite were to begin, with multiple wrestlers slated for AEW Revolution's Meat Madness match out, injured and shelved by AEW doctors. I'm temporarily freezing the bout until they're clear. Meat Madness is on ice. Instead, Sunday's pay-per-view will feature an all-star scramble match. Again, what the hell is this? He must pick things out of a hat, I'm all for daring to be different and something new, but Meat Madness, all-star scramble. So anyway, go see you tonight on AEW Dynamite. Now, this Meat Madness match that was announced last week was supposed to be 3 individuals, okay? Lance Archer, finally, I was happy for him, finally getting on a pay-per-view, the Murder Hawk, Wardlow,
Mm-hmm.
and Powerhouse Hobbs. Now, I get it. That's a meat match if I've ever seen one. I mean, even Lance Archer recently tweeted one of his breakfasts getting ready for the Meat Madness match. He was having steak and eggs, and he was all excited for it. So this took a little wind out of his sails, I suppose. So I don't know why they decided not to do it because from the new graphic for this All-Star Scramble match, and the winner, by the way, of this on Sunday will get an AEW World Championship opportunity in the future. So what is it? It's going to be, I think, 8 individuals that are in this match. Right now, as it stands, there's 2 spots open. So the 6 that were announced, which is kind of confusing to me, Kev, because they still have Powerhouse Hobbs, Wardlow, and Lance Archer in this match. They've since added Chris Jericho, Hook, and Brian Cage, the Mogul Embassy. And I believe this Friday on Rampage, Friday night, they have Claudio Castagnoli going up against somebody. I don't know if he's from CMLL or what, but Regito, how do you? I've never seen this guy. I don't know how to pronounce it. Have you heard of him? Rugido. First, you're hearing of him
Mm-hmm.
too. Yeah. Okay. So you're just as unfamiliar with him as I am, and I think the vast majority of the fans. And that's all good and well. Hopefully, we have a good match. But let's just say Claudio's in this match, and then another +1. We'll see. So this All-Star Scramble match. What do you make of it? I mean, Meat Madness. What are we doing here? This is a. Let me just start by saying this. This isn't some throwaway match that you see on Dynamite or Rampage or even a Collision on Saturday night. People are paying $50 for this pay-per-view.
Right.
A typical pay-per-view streaming. Now, this does mean something because it's the winner does get an AEW World Championship match, and it's got a little more exciting, I guess, because of the stipulation. But what are we
Mm-hmm.
looking at here? What are we looking at here? Is this another case of, unfortunately, the lack of storytelling in certain departments? And we're just going to throw you guys out here because you either have a name like Jericho or we don't know what to do with our big men, as we've said many times before for years, Kev, right? The
Mm-hmm.
Brian Cages of the world, the Powerhouse Hobbs, the Wardlows, the Lance Archers. And that's the irony. of this match. The vast majority of them are big guys, hence why it was going to be Meat Madness. Not sure why they officially canceled it, but regardless what you call it, whatever label you slap on it, what do you make of all of this, barring the stipulation for number one contender?
Like you said, it's kind of a weird thing when Tony Khan does something like this. It's very reminiscent of like, what is it, like the that special match that they usually have at Double or Nothing, um, the one with
The
the
Casino Battle Royale, or
yeah.
yeah,
It's very reminiscent of something like that,
sure.
where they want said winner of the match to be able to challenge for the title in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know. It feels weird. Like had they been building up to this weeks prior, it would have felt a lot more natural. But yeah, just announcing this last minute, just kind of pulling it
Feels
out of
unimportant.
yeah, it feels so unimportant for something that realistically has an important result. Challenging for the title. This feels like almost a one-off where whoever wins is just going to challenge either on Rampage, Collision, Dynamite, and it's
Well,
just
that's what I'm saying. And Kev, it's nothing against any of the 8 competitors that are going to be in this
right.
match on Sunday, regardless the probability of them winning it. It's this whole scenario being such an afterthought that regardless who they go up against, my pick, Samoa Joe, your pick, Swerve Strickland, or in the case that it's 2-time champion Hangman Adam Page at the time, what is the probability of them legitimately beating said champion? Not because of the quality of wrestler they are, but based upon the fact of, are you really going to have one of them in a last ditch effort take down, said champion, regardless who it is? Like, come on. Again, like you said, this might be thrown on a nonsensical Rampage or something like that. Could see that.
Yeah. The only and this is a person who I have winning said match. The only person that I could see, like take seriously would be like a Wardlow. We saw him have that promo a few
Mm-hmm.
weeks ago where he wants to be taken more seriously, seen as a threat. And
Sure.
a lot of people have been very judgmental of like how, his character has kind of like fallen from grace because like, uh, he hasn't been utilized. He cut his hair, so like a whole bunch of things happened with him and his gimmick. So I feel like him maybe winning this match, and then I'm gonna add some fuel to the fire of like of your pick before of like, hey, maybe Samoa Joe retains, but now he has to go up against a Wardlow, and maybe he loses to a Wardlow. Maybe it's that type of scenario. I don't know.
So who would you pick at this moment in time? Would you certainly go with the Wardlow? I know 2 people aren't announced yet in the match, but as it stands right now, the 6 out of the 8 that are announced, who would you say is likely to come out of this on Sunday?
I'm gonna stick with Wardlow.
Stick with Wardlow. Okay.
Mhm.
There's quite a few. I would love to say Hobbs or Wardlow off the rip, but I want to go with a less likely, uh, person in this match just based upon the fact that they're probably going to take an L right against said champion. I'd love to
Mhm.
see Wardlow and Hobbs succeed, but I could see a Brian Cage or a Lance Archer winning this match. It would a become more of a surprise to people that they did defeat the other competitors, and
Mhm.
B, I think it kind of lightens the blow for that loss to the eventual said AEW World Champion. If it is a Brian Cage or Lance Archer, they'll put together a good effort. It'll be a quality match,
Right.
solid match. But I think it's kind of no sweat off Tony Khan's back or them for losing the match, right? It could be very competitive and they lose at the very end. It could be a fluke. Who knows?
Mhm.
I'm going to go with Lance Archer. I think this would be good for him. It will really spotlight him early in 2024. Again, he's not on many pay-per-views. On one hand, I think we could count how many AEW pay-per-views Lance Archer has been on in his 4 or 5 year tenure with the company. So,
Right.
outside of a couple matches with John Moxley, that wasn't even for a title in AEW. I think it was for the IWGP US title a few years back, and a few
Right.
others, maybe a TNT opportunity. I'm going to go with Lance Archer. I think it would be nice to very good to showcase him for the world title, and him taking a loss won't be so bad. All right,
Yeah.
so you got Wardlow, and I got Lance.
Because when just going back to this, because like looking at the list of the competitors, you see Jericho. Jericho's already been champion, and I don't see him winning another world title for AEW anytime soon.
I don't see him beating that group of men. By the way,
Right?
I mean,
Uh,
the 4 of them are massive, and then you had Claudio, maybe. Like, come on.
yeah, then you got Hook in the mix, and he
Come on.
recently just had a title shot against Samoa Joe,
Joe,
right?
that was his first. That was Joe's
Uh,
first opponent last month. Correct.
so
Correct.
I see him being thrown into the mix again so soon. Um, yeah, and then with these other, to be determined candidates,
Yeah.
I really, the fact that they're TBA, I don't have like
Too much
high,
stock in them.
yeah, too much stock in them. Good.
Fair enough. All right, a couple more points, then we'll get out of here. What do you think currently of the whole Bang Bang Scissor Gang, the Acclaimed and Daddy Ass, with Bullet Club Gold's Jay White, and of course the Guns, Jay White and the Guns being the ROH six-man world tag champions. Of course, the Acclaimed and Daddy Ass, they've been the AEW Trios champions now for, I think, exactly 6 months to the day already, which is hard to believe, right? August of 2023 there and All In Wembley when they defeated what was it, the House of Black for them. So I guess that's a two-part question. A, what do you think of the Bang Bang Scissor Gang? And secondly, how do you feel about the Acclaimed and Daddy Ass right now? And I guess just the current state of the AEW Trios Championships.
Hmm. A layered question.
Yeah, start where you want. Start with the Bang Bang Scissor Gang first. What do you think of them collectively? I know it will eventually probably take a turn,
Uh,
but what do you think of it? Like, especially for Jay White, do you think it's a lot of people say it's beneath him? How do you
yeah,
feel about that? You could elaborate on that if you'd like.
I'm not a big fan of it. Seeing it on TV and everything, it was cute like the first week, but now that they're all together, I feel like it's halted the progress of everyone's growth
Yeah.
overall, all six individuals. Um, so yeah, I'm not a big fan of it. It kind of just feels like the division's being held up. N- Nothing significant is really happening. Um,
I'm in the same boat with you. Yeah, I'll
I, I
utter the same
I
sentiments.
feel
Yeah.
like we could be having some killer matches, some killer promos, and we're not getting any of that. Um, Hopefully they end up splitting sooner rather than later. They can fight each other, and then, like I was saying, we could get some good matches, some good promos. Just right now, it's not really doing anything for anyone.
Do you think, well, two things. Again, another two-part question for you here. Do you think that Bullet Club Gold are the ones who eventually dethrone them of the AEW Trios Championships? And with that being said, if they were to hold both sets of titles, the ROH and the AEW Trios in their own name and their own right, do you think they then merge them? Which I don't think is the worst idea in the world, because it's very hard and difficult to keep
Mm,
up consistent trios action on Ring of Honor and AEW. I mean, you see it. It's hard for them to even do it on one brand. How are they going
yeah,
to do it on two? I think that would
my,
be a good idea.
I would say absolutely go for it. We don't always, as fans, see eye to eye with the company when they want to merge said belts,
Mm-hmm.
but this makes sense realistically.
It
Just
does.
this is
Takes a
one of
lot of heat
those.
off them.
Yeah, this is one of those pair of belts where you could easily float between if they want to continue having like the AEW and ROH relationship so close to each other. Then yeah, you could float it easily between both companies. Um, I personally would love to see it stay on one brand, namely like ROH. So
Okay.
AEW has the trios
They could
belts.
do that. They could do that. I mean, Kev, real quick, if I could just say from a WWE standpoint, now I guess A for effort, right?
Mhm.
They've had the WWE women's tag team titles since 2019. So it's been a little over 5 years. Now, a couple of years ago, NXT introduced their own set of WWE, NXT rather, women's tag team championships, where Raquel Gonzalez at the time and Dakota Kai won them. I think on that very night that they officially won it, because they won the Dusty Classic, they lost to Ember Moon, aka Athena, and Shotzi. So there was two champs in one night. Anyway, long story short, didn't work out. It was too much. You had your women's tag champs on Raw and SmackDown, and then you had your NXT women's tag champs on NXT. They said this is going to be a lot too much. Let's merge it. So they did that over the summertime, right? They had Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler defeat Alba Fire, Isla Dawn, and they merged them, right? Only for, I believe it was the next pay-per-view, whatever it was, SummerSlam perhaps, or one of them, or Money in the Bank, I believe it was, where Raquel, ironically enough, we're just talking about her, and Liv defeated Ronda and Shayna for those titles and so on. So anyway, long story short, you try it out, it doesn't work. You just merge it and you move on with life, and it's one less head scratching booking decision you got to make. And I think that's what they should do. Like you said, move it over to Ring of Honor. If you don't want to keep it on AEW, that's fine. I mean, to me, it doesn't matter what brand it's on, whether it's Ring of Honor or AEW. I think one set of titles is more than enough. We have enough titles on both shows. We know it already. And none of us, most people aren't big about the crossover, right? Ring of Honor to AEW, vice versa. But I think this is the one exception to the rule where they can do that from time to time, just because maybe you're short on teams, right? You have a few on Ring of Honor or a few on AEW, and so for some stiff competition, you need to do that every now and again. Sure, so be it. Throw it on a Rampage or a last ditch effort on a Saturday Night Collision or something. I'd keep it off at Dynamite, but something like that I think is the best way to go about it. But I'm with you 100%. Bang Bang Scissor Gang initially was cool. The Guns reunited with Billy Gunn. That's the best part I got out of it. And to be honest with you, I'd be okay with Billy Gunn at this point joining Bullet Club Gold. I think that would be very cool. I think the Acclaimed are the two outsiders. You know, in my opinion, I feel like they're kind of in this sort of stagnant period where they're saying and doing the same things they did a couple of years ago. They're both great wrestlers. We've spoken about Max Caster and Anthony Bowens numerous times on this show. We've known them for a very long time, locally through Jersey and New York, Wrestle Pro, Creative Pro. They're fantastic wrestlers. They got good personalities, great personas. But I think now we're at this crossroads where it's like, all right, so what are we doing with them specifically? Because even if, you know, they feud, if we see the Acclaimed and Daddy Ass going up against Bullet Club Gold and they get the throne and so on, now what? You know, Billy Gunn's going to go away regardless, whether he's with Bullet Club Gold or his sons or whatever. He's not going to be with the Acclaimed forever. I mean, I guess the biggest question here, Kev, is what happens to the Acclaimed? Do they remain together? Can they split? Because at this point, if you were to tell me tomorrow that the Acclaimed is going to split, I wouldn't even care, Kev.
Right.
I feel like that ship has sailed. They were very over for a very long time. Champions or not, sold tons of merch. You know, everybody loves the Acclaim. They even had Jay White say it this past Wednesday on Dynamite. But at this point, it's become stale. It's run its course. Right. I say that in the most respectful way. But I think it's time to move on. I think that is a big part of what is hindering this relationship between Bullet Club Gold and the Acclaimed.
Yeah, to me, it's a little bit, I guess maybe it's kind of like parallel, like it's kind of parallel from a WWE perspective of maybe like the New Day, where like it you know, eventually it runs its course, you know, and then you kind of want to see all the men in the group, you know, kind of do their own thing, even though I know we do still have the New Day technically right now. It doesn't feel like it was like where it felt like it did in 2019, 2017. It feels a lot more different. Like it lost a lot of its shades, you know.
Ironically, to me though, Kev, real quick, the New Day to me never lost their flavor completely. They had lulls, they had dips the last 9 years. Oddly enough, I think a big thing that helped the New Day, that kept them relevant, refreshed, and new, is injuries. As crazy as that is to say, you know, Woods going out for a little bit and Kofi going out for a little bit. And unfortunately, we're coming up on 2 years since Big E's career-ending, life-threatening injury, that neck injury. But, you know, hopefully he'll be back in the ring at some point in time. But I feel like that's what's kept everybody. It's like, oh, he's back. Or, you know, we always got a different tag team, it seemed, from time to time. So that always kept them refreshed. But I know what you mean by that as far as things running its course. I never fully felt like that with the New Day, but after a couple of years with the Acclaimed, I feel like they're a little bit directionless. You know, is it them to blame? Is it Tony Khan and company? Who's to say? But I think something needs to be done. Is it time for a singles run for both of them?
Yeah, I would say so. And we both know that they're each capable of holding their own.
Yeah, very much. Very much.
Because as we've noted, you know, this was a team that formed in AEW. They were never a team outside of AEW. And they were very organic once they were able to come together in AEW. So we know that they're more than capable of like going for, you know, a secondary or you know, other title. Now let me ask you this: if they were to separate sometime this year, do you think they have a feud with each other, or do you think they just kind of completely go their own separate ways?
I think it would benefit them most if they did feud with one another. I would give I mean, you could do either one, babyface or heel, right? I really do think you could. Personally, if it were me, I would have Max Caster go heel. I'd have him turn on the babyface, Anthony Bowens. I think
Mm,
that would be fun. Have him still come out. He could still do his whole rap shtick, and he could be maybe not so beloved by the fans anymore. Maybe they could be booing the hell out of him, and he could get a little bit derogatory with the fans or his opponents to a point, and people can now boo the hell out of him. And Anthony Bowens could be getting all the love in the world. I mean, you could do it the other way around. Of course, Bowens could attack him, and Caster still be super over, coming out doing the rap bit, and people saying, "All right, he's going to take down this heel and such." But I think it would benefit both most with a heel Max Caster eventually attacking, breaking up with Bowens in that tag team capacity, and then them feuding for a little bit. And honestly, if they build it correctly enough, they have enough time now. I mean, it's a match you could have at a major pay per view. I'm not necessarily saying it has to be at Wembley All In, but it could be shortly thereafter at All Out or something like that, or who knows at what point they do this. It certainly could be a match at Full Gear. So I would be here for it. And I think it would give them that initial feud would give them the necessary momentum to keep them relevant again for the first time in a while, like super
mm.
super over. And then you love to love one, you love to hate the other, and you go about your business. And then it's up to the individual, but at least give Anthony Bowens and Max Caster the proper just due of propelling in said direction. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And if they were to feud against each other at whatever pay per view, I think it would show the audience, that hasn't really paid attention to them, how they are as single competitors. Like, hey, these guys can really go. You know.
And they're familiar with one another. Like you said, they weren't an official tag team prior to AEW, which is so funny with them being with the same school and wrestling company and such, but they had faced one another numerous times.
Yeah.
So they are familiar with each other. They would probably put on a great match on AEW television, whether it's a Dynamite or Collision or a pay-per-view, which I would suggest where it should culminate. And so I think that'd be best for both. Look, me and you both were never on here down talking anybody, just talking crap for the hell of it. We say it in the most constructive way possible because we want to see the best for an AEW, for a WWE, an NXT, New Japan, TNA, you name it. We want to watch good wrestling. And so we hope for the best for these guys. So again, I think they just need some refreshing, some rejuvenating. And I think the trios, even the tag team, it's getting tired, it's getting stale. And sometimes the best thing to do is not try to patch it up, but just hit the refresh button, restart.
Yeah, and this might, and kind of like reiterating an old message that AEW wanted to do at some point is that they always said they wanted to have the best tag team division in the world, and right now it feels so far from that message.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're 100% right about that. And it's funny because they always go through these periods where things look promising. At one point, the tag division looked like it was on fire. Then at one point, the trios division looked so strong at one point, they said, wait, they forgot about the tag team division. And now the
Mm-hmm.
trios division is kind of in a what the heck's happening here. And
Yeah.
so obviously it's hurting the titles because it's like, all right, we'll just keep them champs for 6 to 8 months. But I mean, how many title defenses have they had? How many pay-per-views have they been on? I mean, come on. And just, keeping them with a notable faction like Bullet Club Gold and Jay White, it's cool and all, but it's not doing anything for anybody, like you said, other than keeping them stagnant. So that's my 2 cents on that. A couple more things. What
Mm.
are your thoughts on? I briefly spoke to you about it a couple days or weeks ago. I forget. Time's flying by here. What are your thoughts on the new Young Bucks, Matthew, Nicholas Jackson, the EVPs, the presentation, their new theme song, You Leave Us No Choice? I personally love it. What I had read is that it's kind of based off of HBO's original series, Succession. Some said this theme song, even Roman Reigns' theme song, they said this is a very familiar theme song. It's almost eerily similar to Roman Reigns in certain aspects. And they said
Mm.
theme songs came from the basis of Succession, which I'm not familiar with. I did listen to it. I did listen to the song, but I haven't never watched the show. Have you ever watched Succession?
I'm familiar with it.
Okay.
I never actually watched it, but I'm familiar with it. I know how highly acclaimed it is. I know it just ended sometime last year, I believe. A
Would you
lot of
say their theme is derived from that? It seems
I can see
that whole
glimpse.
vibe.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So, do you like it, or do you like their old theme song, "Super Kick Party," better? What would you say? Super Kick Party to me was great, but I am loving this new vibe style, and I think the theme's great.
For me, I like how right now the Young Bucks in general are kind of like willing to swap their theme songs depending on their gimmick.
Hmm.
You don't always see that with wrestlers, and
No,
that is something that maybe we can kind of get more accustomed to in this modern day of wrestling is getting behind that. Like, hey, if they're a heel now, we could kind of change up their music. I've been saying it for the longest time. Is that uh, I've been saying this is like a Jericho. Anytime Jericho was a heel, I was like his actual song itself needs to change. It doesn't make sense anymore. Like, why is the crowd cheering and singing along with him if he is to be hated?
no, you're
Um,
absolutely right. You're right about that.
but in general, I do like what the Young Bucks are doing. I know you were, I think, really too thrilled with it when they first came back, right? They had those mustaches and we
Yeah,
kind of joked.
initially, when I just first saw them at first glance, I was like, "What the hell is this?" I'm all for Dare to be different, but at the
I
first very
liked
moment, I didn't like it. Yeah, you liked it from Jump Street. I wasn't convinced, but after a week or two, especially once that new theme hit, and I saw how funny they were backstage with like, "You're going to get written up, or you're going to get fired, or you're going to get this and that, or a
yeah,
penalty, or fined." I thought that was great. They're really, bullying people, using their power backstage, and them really leaning into the EVP thing is, it's starting to grow on me.
you can make a case. This is AEW's maybe version of whether it's the authority or the corporation.
Yeah,
They're
right. The corporation used to love that in the Attitude Era. Yeah,
uh,
yeah, big fan.
I, I like it. I like it a lot.
I dig it. It's a great song. It's a great song. So all the best for the Young Bucks. Although I do pick them to win at Revolution, I hope I'm wrong. I hope they do lose, but I see success for them, and I think it's really going to give them the necessary heel heat going forward in AEW.
I really hope they continue this at least the whole rest of the year.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's already March essentially, so why not? All right, Kev. So before we get out of here, I last but certainly not least want to talk about the recent passing of Virgil, 61 years old, passed
Mm,
away early Wednesday morning, and he had a rough couple of years. He was diagnosed with dementia a couple of years ago, had a couple of strokes in 2022, and then at some point in 2023, he let the public know that he was dealing with stage 2 colon cancer. And so he's passed on, unfortunately. So RIP
mm,
to Virgil. Our condolences to him and his family, also known as Vincent. Those who watched him in WCW later in his career, he was actually one of the first members of NWO. You see Vincent out there with those sunglasses on, his NWO shirt, and he was right alongside Hollywood Hogan and all the others, the outsiders, and so on. So RIP to him, Kev. It's very notable to us. And then I want to hear what you have to say about him and the entirety of his career and meeting him. 2015, but in 2015, me and Kev went to our first wrestling, I guess you could say, convention slash show slash meet and greet, whatever, in Rawway. And funny enough, I barely had a foot in the door. I don't even think
mm.
Kev was in the door yet. And who was it? As he's pretty notorious for, as many would say, Virgil was right there. He roped me in like he had a lasso, reeled me right in before I could even, understand who it was. And he said, "Hey, it's Virgil, WWE superstar. Want a picture? Want an autograph?" And it was very abrupt, but I said, "What the hell? Why not?" So that was the first wrestler I had met in probably 15, 20 years, Kev, since I was a fan during the golden era or early attitude era, and got a picture with him. You took it, got an autograph, a picture of 8x10 of him and the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. And what a moment. We met him a couple years later at the Icons of Wrestling in Philadelphia, the 2300 Arena, the ECW Arena. And that was the last time we saw him. He even let me hold the $1 Million belt. And so we had a couple of fond memories with him. Again, I'm glad that we had the opportunity to meet him because in the blink of an eye, these guys are gone, right? It's happened to us numerous times over the last 5-6 years, whether it's Nikolai Volkov, Howard Finkel, Mean Gene, who gave you the nickname The Associate. I know there's been others that I've missed, even Ashley Massaro that I had met on a separate occasion. And I know there's a handful of others that we've lost the past couple of years, Bruno Sammartino. So, Kev, yeah, you know how much these things mean to us as far as wrestling fans. And there's so many that we did not get to meet, unfortunately, because they met their time prior to us even getting to see them. So, what was it like for you meeting somebody like Virgil? I know he's probably a little before your time because I was more of the golden era guy. I was more of the WCW guy, but just the interactions with him.
Yeah, a very interesting character, as many of us know in the wrestling community. There are some interesting, wild stories with Virgil. Um, as you said, he's known to like be, we'll say like a businessman.
He
And
would
then I
he would shake
think
people down a little bit. That's just how he
yeah,
was. But
that would be the nicest way to put it.
mhm.
Um, Yeah, but it's very sad, as you mentioned, like how we see a lot of tragedies, these wrestlers, whether it be something ill-fated, some type of accident or something regarding their health. It sucks seeing stuff like this happen, and uh, not to make a joke of it, but like I said, that this is like the exact opposite of hitting a lottery. Like what were the conditions that he was suffering from?
Just the last couple of years, he had a couple of strokes. He had diagnosed with dementia. He lost a ton of weight when he was going through the stage 2 colon cancer last year. And so, I'd seen a picture of him a couple of weeks ago. I don't know how recent it was, but he didn't look well. And it was one of those things where it's like, damn, it doesn't look like he has, we were going to get some news like we did the other day. It doesn't look like he has much longer to go, which
Mm,
sucks. It really does. It really does.
Yeah, yeah, it sucks that as wrestling fans we always have to hear the negative stuff like that. Um, but yeah, he it. How do I explain this? Even if you weren't a fan of his, if you never knew who he was someone that you would always see at these wrestling conventions, and it kind of almost like becomes a tradition where you kind of like once you step foot into the building, you're like, where is he? Because we know that he's here.
Yeah.
Um, it's one of those things. It almost felt like a Where's Waldo thing.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's
He's somewhere around. Yeah.
that's
He's
maybe the best way to describe it. Even if he wasn't necessarily um, promoted for like said conventions, you knew that he was in the building somehow.
so here's a funny thing. And I don't know if you're familiar with this either, but Virgil, Vincent, whatever you want to call him, we call him Virgil. That's how I grew up, knowing him. He was so notorious for being at these conventions with the banner in front of his table, WWE superstar Virgil,
Mm.
that WWE, Mattel, they made an action figure of him back in, I want to say 2017. Yeah, I believe it was 2017. And I had purchased one. I wish I had gotten a lot more actually, stocked up on a few. But anyway, I'm glad I at least got one. And it actually came with a side plate, like a table. What was it? What's the word I'm looking for here? Like a table banner that says
Right,
those exact words, like WWE superstar Virgil. So whoever thought of that, great idea, because it's not something that actually was, the rest of his outfit is from when he was with Million Dollar Man Ted DiBiase in the early 90s. And so for
mm,
them to go 20, 25 years later and then add that accessory to it, what he's doing present day, you don't see that a lot with action figures, specifically
right,
for wrestling. So I thought that was a very nice touch. And you would only know that if you knew how he operated, present day, not just watching him in the 90s.
right.
That was very funny as well. But he was a big fan of Olive Garden. He always let it be known on social media. He loved Olive Garden. He loved making a quick buck, whether it was 8x10, sign him, take a photo. That's just how he was. It was no harm, no foul. And that was just how he operated. People had that understanding. And so you couldn't take it personal.
Mm,
But yeah, a lot of fond memories for sure of Virgil. For me, both watching him as a kid and then, luckily getting to meet him later on.
right. Yeah.
All right, Kev. Well, I guess that's a wrap for the AEW Revolution preview and predictions episode. This was good as it stands. 9 matches and 6 title matches. Again, by the time Sunday rolls around, we'll probably have a few more. But what are we going to do about that? We did as many as we could right now. And
Hmm.
last, before I get you out of here, no TBS championship match. As I said, Julia Hart not on this card. I mean, would it kill him to give us a second women's match? Come on. So, who would you say? I haven't paid attention to the ranking system. I really haven't. I really don't care about it. I'm not a
Right.
big fan of it, but that's nor here nor there. Who would you say? Who is one woman in AEW that you would like to see challenge Julia Hart for that championship?
Oh man, good question. Maybe I would say, the up and comer of Queen. We got to see her.
Queen Amanada. Yeah,
We got to see her
good choice.
when we went to that episode of Dynamite, that
Yeah,
taping, and she was very, she impressed, I think, a lot of people that day because I think some of us have known her before her time here in AEW,
hmm
but I think that this was one of those matches where it garnered a lot of attention. And I was happy to watch that match live because it helped me put into perspective of like, okay, like she is steadily improving. So I think so by this time next year she will at least have one title under her belt.
yeah, no pun intended there. I certainly think that Queen Amanada should be a candidate for that TBS championship. I think that would be great. And man, I know that's the $1 million question. Do we ever see Athena lose that Ring of Honor championship, bro? Is she ever coming back to AEW? I mean, especially with the impending debut March 13th of Mercedes Moné. I mean, do you think Mercedes is going to get enough pull to say, hey, look, it's cool she has this run or this reign and all, even if she still is champion? Every other Ring of Honor champion, as we discussed last episode, comes over to AEW for a match. They're technically all elite. Why aren't we seeing her? And another rumor I had heard, Kev, I don't know if there's any validity to it, that Mercedes could potentially be in TK's ear about an all women's pay per view. I don't know. I don't
And
know how I feel about that for AEW right now, just because, not to say they don't have the roster for it, but because so many of those women, you barely see them, you know? So, like, I don't want to use the term, are they ready? But do you have enough women that are set to go for an all women's pay per view and make it look great? You know what I'm saying? If this was WWE, it's a little different. You have a whole slew of women ready to go on NXT. And then you have obviously Raw and SmackDown. So them, yes. AEW, I'm a little uncertain, but would I love to see it? Sure. Do you think anything
right.
like that could happen? Do you think Mercedes helps greenlight that?
Yeah, in time, I wouldn't be opposed to it. And for me, maybe not this year, maybe next year. For sure, we could have that as another addition, to the lineup of the pay per view that we are coming to know.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I wouldn't mind if they had some outside talent. It doesn't have to be women that are necessarily signed to the AEW roster. They could
Sure.
kind they could kind of like make it a I don't know if you would call it like an invitational or like another version of like a forbidden door, but just have women from other um, independent wrestling companies that we've don't even maybe aren't aware of, don't know too much about, but like hey, these women can really wrestle, and just build up some storylines for like the main matches. I think would be the most important thing.
Would you do like for starters with AEW and I guess Ring of Honor, it's kind of one and the same really as far as the women's division is concerned, but would you do something like a Stardom and a CMLL, all three of them with a Forbidden Door type of deal for an all women's pay-per-view? Do you think they would absolutely need to go outside of AEW to pull this off? I guess is what I'm saying.
I would encourage it, to be honest. I would
Yeah,
like to see
I'm not opposed to it either, just because
I,
I'm a little uncertain.
right. And I'm kind of thinking because I don't know what will happen. Like if we were to say if it were to happen a year from now, what type of matches? If they would try to do some type of like multi-woman match with like multiple teams or something.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that already kind of like if they were to do like let's say a 4-on-4, that's 8 women off the roster right off the back. So
Right.
then like you gotta try to fill up more spots, and then where do you get more women from? Where you're just like, all right, well, we're gonna try to pull some women from like our ROH division, roster, and it's like, okay,
All
well, do
all
we?
five of them. Yeah.
And then it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, we're kind of running low, so what do we do? That's why I'm kind of saying, implement the idea of like pulling talent from other companies.
I would encourage that. I'm on board with you there. I would even love to see a couple of the Survivor Series, traditional Survivor Series style matches, like you said, maybe a 4-on-4 type of deal. It's a way to get a lot of women involved on this show, not giving them the pressure of them single handedly having to go out there and crush a singles match or even a tag team match. And
Mhm.
the reason I also would encourage them going outside initially too, like you said, unfortunately, it is the fact that the confidence just isn't there. I think, in the fans and the talent. Not to say these women don't believe in themselves. I'm not saying that at all. I think the star power is there. You haven't, TK and company have not made enough of them superstars at this point in
Right.
time. They're very few and far between. You know, you have your obviously your timeless Tony Storms. If you have Mercedes, you have your Athenas. You have the likes of Chris Statlander, sure. Maybe a couple of others, Deanna Purrazzo, and there's a few here and there. You could say Red Velvet, Mariah May. To a point, I don't even know. That's up in the air as well. There's not enough that are established stars that can absolutely just be AEW exclusive pay-per-view. I feel like you have to outsource to Mexico, to Japan, and get
The
those
UK.
kinds of people, and the UK even, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I feel like that's a great idea. But yeah, it's something I think they could work on maybe next year. Again, a lot of it depends upon how long Mercedes is there. Last thing, I would say she's guaranteed a year there. Would you venture to say Mercedes is going to go on a 2-year deal, or would you say it's also more along the lines of maybe 1 year at most, or even 6 months?
Hmm.
What do you think the basis is of that agreement? Do you think
I
it's
feel like depending on, you know, there is what she wants, and then there's kind of what Tony wants. I feel like Tony would want her to be there for a minimum of 2 years, like a 2-year
yeah?
contract.
I think 2 years is fair. I think 1 year is certainly not enough.
Yeah,
I think 2 years, she could
because
still knock out 2 years. And if she wants to go WWE or wherever, she's still young enough. What, 34? You know?
yeah, because 1 year doesn't guarantee a lot of feuds. You know, it's very limited. But in two
Right.
years, you get a good amount of feuds.
Especially depending on the title reign. Let's just say
Yeah,
it starts June 1st.
it's you could say it's a difference between like 10 to 20 feuds. You know,
Yeah. Oh,
something
yeah.
like.
Easily. Easily. All right. So that just about does it. As I said 10 minutes ago, with the associate Kev, thank you as always for coming on to the show, my friend. Appreciate you. Hopefully, if you have a few minutes or an hour, I could catch you on the tail end for that Revolution review. And this was the preview predictions episode for AEW Revolution. Everybody out there, enjoy the show Sunday night. I think it's going to be good. Again, at minimum, it's going to be great for the fact that this is Sting's last match, not just in AEW, but in his entire career at 64 years old as a tag team champion. Will he come out as a tag team champion? We don't know. Kevin says yes. I don't think so, but at least he's going in as one. And so that's it, right, Kev?
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully we we come to see some surprises, some title changes. You know, spice it up. We've been saying that we've been enjoying the ride so far for wrestling of 2024, and I hope the trend continues.
Yeah, the first 2 months have been pretty solid, I got to say. Will it
Yeah.
continue? I believe it. All this momentum going on, the AEW, certainly NXT and WWE, WrestleMania around the corner, a little over a month away. So a
Mhm.
lot to look forward to in pro wrestling as a whole. But that's it here, folks. Thank you for tuning in to the Turnbuckle Topics podcast. I'm your host, Pat Deneen. That is the associate, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening.